Acoustic guitar can be very tricky to mix. Usually you're trying to make it sound natural, full, and clear, but sometimes it can sound over-processed and thin if you're not careful. In this video, I'm going to share some pro tips on working with acoustic guitars. Take a listen before and after. I'm going to walk through every key element of mixing these acoustic guitars and show you exactly how to get that natural, full, and clear tone. It's important to start with a good, clean recording. The better it sounds to start, the better it's going to sound after it's mixed. These guitars we're working with were recorded with a spaced pair of large diaphragm condensers, one placed at the 12th fret, one placed around the sound hole, and those were about 6 inches off the guitar. This rhythm guitar is kind of the foundation of the guitars in this track, but it's sounding a little woofy and muddy. Take a listen to it. So let's shape the tone of this track with Xrack Pro. I'm going to flip over to the tube tone mode. This one is really warm and colorful. It's got a silky high end with just the right amount of sparkle for these guitars. That's one of the things I love about this tube tone mode. It just feels like it always retains the warmth in a nice way. So next, let's add a bit of dimension with the maximize module. So you can hear when I kick it in, it just opens up the guitar in a really pleasant way. And what's great about Xrack Pro is that I can use this multiband dynamics effect, but I can pull just the highs down. You notice when I push them up all the way, we get a little bit of that natural hiss. Sometimes that sounds really nice and that's what we want. In this case, we want it to sound natural. So being able to pull down just the high amount is really critical here. So let's take a listen before and after Xrack Pro on this track. We're going to notice how it just opens up. It gets rid of all the woofiness. It sounds nice and light, but it's still very warm and colorful. So let's build this track one at a time. Next, we're going to add in the broken chords track. Now this one, we're going to copy over the processing to start. So it's doing a great job of cleaning it up. I actually want to bring back some of the lows. I think that for this track, we have a little bit more room to breathe on some of those lows. So we're going to bring some of those back here. The other thing with this track is it's a bit more dynamic, so we could get away with a little bit of compression just to make sure that that stays nice and consistent. So it sounds much fuller and nicer with that compression in, and overall we're getting a nice clean, clear tone here. Let's take a listen just to these rhythm tracks. I'm going to kind of pan one a little to the left, one a little to the right, give them their own space in the mix. The guitars are really coming to life there. So for the main lead guitar, take a listen to it by itself. So for an acoustic guitar that you really want to stick out of the mix, the mids are incredibly important. This is where you're going to get that full presence. Again, I'm going to flip to the tube tone mode because this one just has such a nice rich mid-range. It's going to really help bring that guitar forward. So you notice we're not touching the highs. A lot of times if you want something to sparkle, you kind of bring some highs into it. In this case, it's gonna make it sound kind of cheap if we do that. Take a listen. So you don't usually want to boost the highs like that. It just makes the strings sound kind of cheap and brittle. Instead, the mids are really where that presence is gonna come from here. So now I want to warm it up even a bit more. I'm going to play around with some tape saturation. I love how that fills out the mids and lows, and it just sounds really nice and warm on top as well. It's very silky. Now again, for a lead instrument like this, I want to kind of place it dynamically in the front of the mix. So I'm going to use a little bit of compression on this. So you can tell this performance is incredibly dynamic. Some of those notes are really jumping out, but we're still containing it nicely and keeping it in the front of the mix so we don't lose any of the soft notes and the loud notes don't kind of jump too far forward. So let's take a listen before and after Xrack Pro on this lead guitar. Just sounds much warmer and fuller. It's taking up a lot of space right where we want it to in the mix. I really like that processing. Let's copy this over to the harmony track and take a listen to how these blend together. So I love how full and warm that sounds on those guitars. There's one more thing we're going to add, which is a little bit of Mixbus processing. And this is going to glue not only all these guitars together, but also with the bass and percussion. We're going to get all of these tucked in nicely. So the first thing I'll do is flip over to this glue compressor. This one's incredible on a Mixbus. I love how that's bringing everything together and really making this mix feel cohesive. Every element still has its space. This glue compressor is just kind of snugging them all up to each other here. A little bit of tone shaping just to tilt it up a little bit, give us a little bit more sparkle on the high end. It does a really good job of doing that without adding any brittleness or harshness. Like the depth that that's adding to this track. Last thing I want to try is just a little bit of saturation. Again, just adding a little bit of warmth and color with this tape saturation. So now let's listen before and after all of these Xrack Pros on the guitars and the Mixbus. Mix is just so much clearer, more upfront, without losing any of the warmth or natural feel of the guitars. There's a nice sense of openness. Every element has its place, but it's also nice and cohesive and glued together. And one of the things I love about Xrack Pro is how quickly we can do all of this. We can make these decisions very quickly and creatively, and really staying focused on elevating the mix and getting it to where it needs to be. If you enjoyed this tutorial, give it a like, subscribe for more videos like this, and as always, happy mixing.